Hello, Senor Church.
See.
It's not the correct response. You're supposed to say hello back.
Gracias.
That's no. You're not thanking me for anything.
Senor.
Okay.
Uno.
Yep.
Dos.
Okie dokie. Any more? Or you just know two.
I know whenever they go, however far they go into that Offspring song, that's...
Jeez. Spanish numbering aside, how you been keeping up on your writing goal that we made last week that technically doesn't start till the new year? I know it's the new year as of this being released, but technically it's only Thursday the 30th, December 30th, 2021 as of recording. So I started early. My New Year's resolution, I think we talked about on air, was 5 out of 7 days of writing.
Yes.
And trying to read for a solid hour every day. So far this week, I've accomplished everything. I missed 1 day of writing, but if I write tomorrow, I hit my days.
Yeah.
I wrote today, so I'm good. I'll get tomorrow, and then I'll be fine. I'll get my 5. Hopefully Saturday, too. Then I'll just get 6 out of 7 days, which is pretty good, in my opinion. And the hour writing thing, I've been pretty solid with it, though there's a few days there where it might have been like 45 minutes, but then I also read like a half hour here, 20 minutes on my lunch. Like it broke up, but I still been getting at least an hour of reading every day. I just need to, getting that solid straight hour. It's a little tough just because of things you're doing throughout the day. I've been trying to do it at night, but that's when I'm most sleepy.
Yeah,
I get so sleepy, and I don't want to do it. Especially when I'm reading like The Hobbit, or not The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings. I get to a couple boring bits, and I'm just like, okay, I'm so sleepy. I did get to an exciting part last night, so
I'd imagine reading about them walking everywhere would have like the same effect of like counting sheep.
Yeah, kind of. Just it gets a little rough. So what about you, sir? I don't know if you're actually going to follow the same. You agreed, but I didn't know if you're actually going to try the same goal as me.
After you texted me yesterday of the recording of this episode asking me, that day I only got like 100 or so words in there, but
that's 100 words you wouldn't have gotten if you didn't write it all, though.
That is also true. I've been more just this week been using to try to get caught up more on the reading,
right?
Because I already had an abundance of graphic novels and trades built up, and I got another like shit ton for Christmas. So I was like, I need to try to get some of these out of here.
It's a good way to end the year, though. Just plow through all that stuff and then start the year fresh.
Yeah,
or as fresh as you could be.
Right?
For
us. As fresh as 2022 can be.
It's not going to be very fresh.
No.
It hasn't even snowed, really. It's just been raining and 50, 60 degrees every day in Pennsylvania, our part of Pennsylvania. So it's not a good sign for the times to come.
Interesting.
End of days, maybe? Maybe it'll stretch on for years. I don't know. So I'm actually pretty excited because the writing's been getting a lot easier as I've managed to do it. It's weird because normally I'm one of those people who, as we watch the Walter Mosley masterclass, some of those, he says, write every day. And then all the other ones I watched, it was always write every day. And I've been more of a, I'm in the mood right now. I'll write for 5 hours, but then I won't write for 2.5 weeks or something stupid. Or I'll struggle to get any quality writing in. Or I'm writing a novel, but you know what? Maybe I'll just write a quick essay or short story or something that I end up bailing on because I'm not that interested in it. No, I've just been focusing on my novel and actually writing. And now it's going good. Once you get into a little bit of a rhythm, I'm hoping if I keep it up by next week, what I'm really hoping is I just won't want to take any days off and I'll just do 7 out of 7 days. But one step at a time, as they say.
Well, also too, I don't, maybe now in the process of where we're at is, the 7 out of 7, you want to maybe be careful because you don't want to burn yourself out too much.
Yeah.
But no, that's not saying you did 5 days and you get the urge to write doesn't mean you shouldn't write. If you got it, do it. But you just might want to be careful, down the line to make sure that you do give yourself
what we were
breaks.
Saying in the last episode was writing's not always just prose. It could just be notes. If you vary it and you're not just strictly just writing prose and writing your story, if you come up with ideas or character ideas or, just random quotes that come to you throughout the day, things like that, that's still writing,
Yeah.
and it's not as daunting, and you can still mark that. At least I would mark that as my daily writing. Like Chuck Palahniuk said, when he's actually writing the novel, that's not really the writing part for him. The writing part is everything before, all the notes and, interviewing people and everything he does to get the ideas for the book. That's what he considers writing. The final product of him just sitting at the computer, he just considers that just putting everything together. I like that idea because it makes me feel less like a loser when I have my note feature on my phone is full of shit, and then I haven't written for 2 days, and I'm like, I haven't done anything. I'm like, actually, I did a lot of shit. I have paragraphs here of different parts of the story. I just need to actually, like a puzzle, fit them into the story. So don't get down on yourself, folks, if you're not technically writing every day, but as long as even if you're just kind of daydreaming a lot and you're still coming up with the ideas, I would recommend writing those down or recording them in some fashion, though. Hopes for 2022, looking up, looking down, looking which way for you, Spencer? For me, sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit.
I'm actually excited to go into this new year because, God, Lord knows the last year was bleh, poopy to poop shits. So nothing, you're just not excited. Even kilter.
Yeah, it's one of those prepared to be disappointed, and when you're not, it's extra great. And then
keep your expectations low.
Yeah,
it's like the days of our lives just roll over into the next, and the mundane aspects of the work that you have to do, and everything just drags you down, and it's just a malaise you're living through, especially in the wintertime. That is hard to overcome.
Is it winter?
It's supposed to be. It doesn't feel like it, but it's supposed to be. It felt more like winter when it wasn't winter.
I always wanted to write I don't know if I wanted to write, but what I thought would be like a cool, but I guess would be kind of sci-fi story or something. But it's like somehow the weather's on the coast changed, and like even from like the north to the south. So like California is getting like a whole bunch of snow. And like shitty,
we just get sunshine and rainbows,
and stuff like that.
No rain. How do you have rainbows without rain? That was a stupid thing to say, but I get what you're saying. I like that. I just flip it.
Yeah,
just flip it. Let's flip the whole earth. The equator, just flip it. We'll be tropical. They could be shit town.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I like it.
And just like I don't know, maybe just be like a short story, but just to see like how people interact and how that changes things and stuff like that.
Like when what was it? They had the big heat wave this summer in England, and people were like dropping dead, and they were freaking out, and it was awful. But then us stupid Americans found out it was only 86 degrees or something, and we're like, "What? That's a heat wave for you?" Like, especially us, like here or other places that get way past 100. But they're England's not built for that. They're built like their houses don't have air conditioning, and they're built for freezing cold winters.
Yeah.
So obviously, if they had a heat wave, they're not escaping it. So I felt kind of bad for him, but it's like, oh man, 86, like that'd be nice for us. We're like, yeah, it's nice and cool out today. Let's go play some basketball. But anyway,
you can sweat but not die, except if you're over there, I guess.
Well, yeah, over there. I feel like if you're English too, like everything just gets you a little easier. I don't know why. I just feel like, and they're like very polite about it. It's like, I'm gonna go lay down and die now.
It does seem like they have like a weak constitution sometimes.
I was gonna say that, but I don't. I think it's just the food. It's not giving them the right amount of nutrients.
Oh, we're just thinking about French.
French. That's a new one.
French.
I never heard of French. Is that next to Germania?
Yes.
Okay. I like Germania too.
They're neighbors.
We need to get into this episode instead. We have a lot of UK listeners.
I don't want to get into this episode. Let's continue.
I know. That's why you're procrastinating. Spencer does not like the topic we're going to discuss, and I'm going to make him very angry. But I do want to say, because we have a lot of UK listeners, we do not think you have weak constitutions. I've never been to England, any part, so I don't know what the weather's like, but I know you have old buildings that are very well insulated for the winter. So if it's 86 degrees out, and it might have been warmer, that's just what I was hearing. What am I apologizing? We're Americans. We don't apologize.
Yeah.
We double down on our stupid beliefs, and we fucking try to make other people believe it. That's what we do.
Yeah.
86 is weak. Oh, blimey. It's hot. Though I will say the Australians are really fucking with them, though, about it. Because Australians they make us look like the pussies.
Oh, right?
So all your listeners in Australia, yeah, I know 86 to you guys. You know what? They probably don't even, we say 86, they're like, oh my God, it must be 1,000,000 degrees. Because they're Celsius or whatever. We're not Celsius. They say it's 100 degrees Celsius. I'm like, oh my God, is that hot? Or
I don't know.
I just don't know. It's a weird scale. So we will be back after one of the last times this intro music will be used. We got a couple more. But pretty soon, we're going to pick new intro music, and I hope it's good. I keep saying, like, we're going to pick it, but I feel like we're going to be like, I don't like any of this. We're going to keep this. But we need better music, Spencer. I hired a band.
We should just, like, update it somehow.
Just add, like, an extra bass riff.
Yeah.
A meaty bass riff. Just slap, slap, slap. This is the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. Thank you for listening. I would like us to have stereotypical Japanese girls in the background just go hee 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 when we do stuff. Why are you shaking your head? You poo-poo every idea I have.
We're going to have enough trouble with this episode.
Yeah, the title is going to be something along the lines of, is Stephen King canceled? So people that probably get outraged by that stuff or feel he should be canceled are going to listen to this episode. And so now we're canceled because of the racist things you make me say on here. Probably. I'm your host, Caleb James, and with me today, Spencer, the Newark Nord... that's not a good one, is it? You know what? Fuck it. Spencer, the Newark Norwar... How do you say that? What, Narwhal? What are those fucking fat gelatinous sea creatures with the horn? Does that even start with an end? Narwhal?
I'm thinking like walruses.
No, not walruses. They got the tusk.
Yeah.
No, it's got the... They used to think they were mermaids, but they're very fat. Narwhal? I keep thinking of Nardwar, the Canadian journalist. That's not him. It's not Nardwar. Newar? Fuck, that's going to bother me. Until then, you could be the Paris Pussy Pounder... Ooh, that's too harsh. Too harsh. Name a city. Or name a country. Name a country. You can name one country. Not a continent. Don't say Africa.
No.
That's all I'm going to think about now. I don't even know how to... I can't even... People are listening, and especially the marine biologists we have, and they're very mad.
We're big with the marine biologists.
It just comes up Nardwar, the human serviette. That's the journalist guy. Fuck, how do you know it? Norwal. Norwal is it? Newark Norwal. I don't know. I didn't look it up. I think it's a Norwal. That's stupid. I don't like that. But since I brought up walrus, you could be... We gotta name a W fucking country. Man, the blank stare of doom. I see the wheels like just grinded to a halt there. Wow, this is a good way to start this episode. Crying out loud. So you could be... Because we keep doing this stupid, dumb thing that we do. You could be the...
Is all this staying?
Probably. I don't feel like editing things anymore. Until the 100th episode when we get professional, I don't have to worry about it so much. You know what? Because you're fucking giving me one, you could be Spencer, the Anchorage Aneurysm Church. You're giving me an aneurysm right now.
Nice. I like it.
Also, I don't think I pronounced that quite properly. Had to add a little bit of a hick inflection to it. Also, when I listen to the podcast, some of our pronunciation of things, not like hard words, like normal speaking words, like because and things like that. It sounds so fucking
I'm bad.
It's because of the area we grew up in. And like we think, oh, we're not too bad. We don't have that stupid Pittsburgh Yinzer accent. But you know what? We're close.
Yeah.
Like we have some kind of weird fucking West Virginia hick southern shit thrown in.
I had somebody, this was a couple years ago. It was like when a new person came into work, they're like, oh, where are you from? I was like, here in this town where we live in. You sound like you're like from like New York or something. I was like,
New York?
What?
What part of New York?
Man, I don't know, maybe they caught me in like a cursing like snap.
She's they're fucking cursing out everybody. Did you say forget about it?
Forget about it.
I don't even think they say that up there anymore. I feel like that's such a stereotype that even like where is this article? Oh my god! How many times do I gotta click on this stupid article, Spencer?
A lot.
All right, so the topic of the episode is Stephen King canceled. This is probably not even gonna be a relevant story by the time this episode drops, because not cuz. I always say cuz, and you always say cuz, and we sound dumb. Because someone wrote a hit piece on Stephen King. You read it. I sent it to you. I made you read it. I assume you read it. You said you did. That doesn't mean you did. Before we get into that, the topic of the piece, which was by Meg Ellison, and she is I never heard of her, but I think I'll go to her biography at the end of this because when I looked on her Twitter page, it seems like she's doing pretty well for herself as a writer. And I did think the article was well written. I just, you know what? I want to read her biography. We'll get into that too. Meg Ellison is a science fiction author and feminist essayist. Her debut, The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, won the 2014 Philip K. Dick Award. She is a Hugo, Nebula, Sturgeon, and otherwise awards finalist. In 2020, she just says she posts a bunch of collections of stories and stuff. So very accomplished in her own right. And like I said, I thought this article was very well written. I wanted you to read this because you're the Stephen King fanatic here, not I. I've read some of his work, but you've read much more. So her gripe is, because I'm not going to go into the actual article here, is that Stephen King, to be polite, is fatphobic. But from what she was saying, and she pointed out a lot of examples, very hardcore anti-fat sentiments in his stories. The fat person's always really disgusting, a bad person, weak, like all this stuff. Your typical fat stereotypes, of course, and just a lot of harsh things. I was reading the Twitter thread, too, because she posted that on Twitter is where I found it. And a lot of people were throwing in some like, oh, racist, and, just the typical, that kind of stuff. But the main one was like the fat phobia. I wanted your opinion on it because having read this article and reading all the examples she posted, you would be more familiar. So what do you think? Like, do you think he's fatphobic, or do you think these were just instances of character development, maybe in a not so sensitive way, I guess you could say?
How many times do we have to bring up everything that our author puts in their book they do not believe or think is 100% true or accurate? Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Just because he describes the weird fatness of somebody doesn't mean he's going around and like throwing water balloons at fat people, like telling them to jog. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
And also, you gotta, when you look into the article, and all the stories that she pulls from are from like the late 70s, early 80s.
Which he even points out that was a problematic era in the article for most writers just because of the way the world was.
Yeah. Or just the people don't look upon the same things and stuff like that.
And I do want to say, she is a big Stephen King fan, apparently. She has a Stephen King tattoo and read a lot of his work. But she is a big lady herself.
Yes. Which that was
called Fat Lady, I think she said in the very first paragraph there.
Which, that was one thing that I did enjoy. Because if I would have read this whole thing and I would have went down and I saw that the biopic was just like some skinny lady,
you would have been like,
that would have pissed me off. Like,
well, I will say, when I read, because it was Stephen King was just trending, which he does often, and I click on it, it's usually like, new book coming out or some dumb shit. But every once in a while, it's like if somebody's trying to cancel him. So when I saw this, I will admit, my very first reaction was just to get annoyed. I was just like, are you fucking kidding? Another one of these things? And then because especially when I read the headline, it was like her tweet was like something about Stephen King fat shaming, we need to talk about it, or his problem with fat people, we need to talk about. Like one of those things where it's just like, okay, we need to get into this. It's like, do we really? Is it that big of a deal? So that made me mad. And I actually did not, I sent the article to Ashley at first and I only started to read it. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want to get mad today. I didn't read it. But then today I was thinking about it and I was like, I should give it a chance. Should at least read the article to see if it's a fair, because I don't like to just judge someone that says something that I might not agree with on a surface level, because unless you read that person or talk to that person and know their actual opinion, you can't say for a fact that you might, not end up agreeing with them. So with the examples she pointed out, I could see why, like, especially if someone was a heavier person and reading his work might feel offended, or to be like, why do people that look like me always have to be in a negative light in his work? Like, I get that. But what she didn't do in her article, she didn't post the examples he does of skinny people or of any other people.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, he has, like, super racist people.
Because I've read stories of his where the skinny person is a fucking malicious dickhead or something like that. So it's not just, like, the fat people that, he has a negative view on. Again, like you said, why is that actually his views, or is it just he's just a writer and that's what he's doing?
Like, if you're trying to put something like that across, like people already have this almost built image in their mind.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe should you maybe be a little bit clever, or maybe try to come up with something
You
different?
could say it's lazy writing to a
Maybe.
degree.
But also, and then she also brings this up in the article, it's like how gluttony and greed and things are always kind of. So if you have like a character that's super greedy and glutton, like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It kind of makes sense if they're going to be overweight, because it kind of falls in with the personality and characteristics. Now, that person could be a good person or it could be a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, it just, I don't.
One of the things that she pointed out was in his, and again, I haven't read, and I don't think I've really read any of the stories where it was about these like fat examples she used, because I haven't read it. That was like a main one, but it's always the fatness is something to overcome. So if they are a good person, they have to lose weight to be revealed as a good person. So like Ben in It, when he grows up and he slims down and stuff, that's when he's worthy of affection. And then I think she also points out that it seems that's only the character arc for the men, because I think she did, well, she's a feminist, so she probably reads more into like what the women's issues would be versus us. So she was pointing out that the women in the stories get a raw shake when it comes to that. Like, they don't get the character arc of getting skinnier. They just get to be fat, gross, and mean.
In general, yes. But one thing, and you'll find as you start to read more Stephen King, he does a surprisingly well job of, like, writing, like, good, strong women characters.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
So, like, it's not like he's anti-women or anything like that. And, like, I just think it's, like, this is a little more humorous note, but in his writing book, didn't he talk about...
I was just going to bring that up.
So, like, he might have some bias. Like,
if you look at it from a psychological perspective, he tells you, and on Reddit, he tells a story of a babysitter he had who was overweight, and she sat on his face and farted in his face.
Yeah.
That's very traumatic, especially for a youngster. So, and if you looked at that from a modern lens, you could even say that's sexual assault or something, because, like, you're putting your fucking ass in someone's face. So, if he did have a bias, I could see where it stems from, honestly. And then, like, she ends the article talking about, like, his writing career and his views are so widely accepted because that's what we've always accepted, is the views of kind of, like, either in shape or skinnier white males. And I guess that, I could say that's true to a point, too. But, like, the world is changing, and I can see how those kind of views are shunned now, and people might not want to read about that stuff because if you're a bigger person, you would want to read maybe about stronger. And she gives a lot of examples of authors who are writing characters who are overweight, but they're the hero, or they're doing this or that.
But see, like, maybe that's just me, because, with us being like, white males and stuff like that. I don't want to read a story just because it's whatever it is, but it's a fat person.
Yeah.
Or it's a black person, or it's a gay person, or I want to read it because the story is good, and hopefully it has a variety of awesome, terrible, great characters that are all the colors of the rainbow. Now, again, like I said, that's because we have so much stuff that looks like us that we can, we can watch and see and read. But also, like, I was pretty fat when I was a kid. And then, I started doing sports and, like, working out, and, like, I started losing weight. The example she gave of whenever the kid from It was running and the juggling and, like, like, those were kind of accurate. Those are, like, you know what I mean? It's not, I don't feel like those were to put him down, but it was more of feeling how this character feels, like, you know what I mean? Well, inside of his own body.
What would you think it would have turned out like if he didn't have one of the kids as a overweight kid, and that wasn't that kid's struggle, and that kid didn't have problems with that and wasn't bullied for that? Then what do you do in that particular story in that time period? Because whether people like to admit it or not, kids are bullied because they're overweight.
Yeah, and I mean, and you want to talk about, like, giving you somebody to, like yourself to look at, like, what else is more, like, recognizable as the heavyset kid that's always getting picked on.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm sure throughout the years, there's been countless heavyset kids that saw that and was just like, oh, well, it kind of worked out for him, it worked out for me. And you know what? I might die on this hill. You might have to counsel me on this hill. You need to get in shape. It's not okay.
To be morbidly obese?
It's not.
For your own sake. I mean, yeah. If you're morbidly obese, like, the science is there. And
because I think because isn't at the end or something, didn't she bring up something about, like, not being more at risk because of, like, heart attack or something?
Well, there were sources. I didn't click on those, so I can't say on that, but can't speak on that. But she did have some kind of sources that I think what you're talking about. Yeah, like the body positive movement, I'm fine with, but the body acceptance movement when it comes to just being unhealthy, and that's fine. That's where I would personally draw the line, because if I start getting, because my weight fluctuates all the time. If I start getting too much weight, I personally feel worse.
Yeah.
Like I have trouble breathing going up the stairs. My body hurts more. It's just, I don't think that's, I think your quality of life, your physical quality of life is probably better if you weigh less. That's just like, because the more weight you have on your body, the more you have to carry around. It's going to cause problems.
And there are big, like, look at like NFL linemen.
Yeah.
That are huge, but run way faster than I'll ever run.
Yeah.
And so those rare freaks, out there. And like, and I'm saying this as somebody who's not even, like you, that's like in a good, like, workout shape. Like, no, I look like I'm good, like 3-4 months pregnant. Like, I got a little beach ball going on and stuff. Like, so, glass houses and stones and all that stuff. I think you should look at it more as like, this character, he improved himself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what he, like, I think that was, if I
especially
have to
in
say,
the time period, like, there was no fat acceptance movement when he wrote it.
Yeah.
So back then, like, the idea of improving yourself, one easy way to write about that is somebody getting in shape. That's like always been the prototype, is quit drinking, quit drugs, get in shape. Those were always the main things people do in fiction to, better themselves, because those are the things you can personally control. Like getting better job, getting a house, getting along with your parents. Like, some of that stuff is out of your control. But like those three things are always in your control. Mm-hmm. That's why a lot of writers utilize that in the writing. And nowadays, I'm not even going to go into that. I want to go into, because I don't want this episode to be too long. Like, one of her main problems, which I do agree with, is the idea that if you're writing about somebody being fat, that they just have to be automatically, like, so disgusting, lazy, weak. That's not true. Like you said with the linemen, some people, their metabolism just sucks. Some people do have medical issues that make them heavier.
Or some people are just big.
Yeah.
Like Brock Lesnar.
He's a big dude. He could easily be really fat.
Oh, he could never be skinny.
No.
Like, it's just not in his genes. Like, I don't think he could be skinny.
But you could just see, if he was one of those guys that if he didn't work out and all he did was eat, he would probably be very big and fat. Like, that's just because that's his genetic, clearly. But he's also a gorilla. Like, he's just huge because he works out and takes roids and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, because, like, the one example was, is it Eddie? No, it wasn't Eddie, was it? Was he the one with asthma in it?
Yeah.
Well, he thought he had asthma, but his mom... Well, the point is, his mom, in the story, she is very overbearing, controls his life, makes him think he has asthma, pretty much like Munchausen syndrome. But the one thing that Stephen King really focused on was that she was a big fat lady, and she was disgusting and a slob and all this stuff. Like I said, I haven't read it, but even just from watching the movie, I always kind of took that as the mom, because she doesn't have control of herself and her life, that's why she's so controlling of her son and wants to control his life. I never really thought of it as just her being fat, just like him shaming her to be fat. But I do, like, agree, maybe not write a character that one other thing is, well, I want this character to be a disgusting human being, so they have to be fat as well. Like, I get that. But at the same time, I've seen Stephen King have skinny characters that were also disgusting, and not just physically, because that's the main thing that goes along with this is, they're fat, disgusting because they're fat physically, but also because they're bad humans. And that's the correlation she was making, is why do you have to be a bad person just because you're fat? But he also writes skinny people, like all kinds of people who are bad people, and it has nothing to do with their physical appearance necessarily. That's just, again, another writer tool, is it's easy to show somebody as a bad person by because whether you want to admit it or not, we are surface level people as, society. Like, we judge people on their looks. So you see somebody that's fat, like really, really big, the first thing you think is, oh, what the fuck? They must eat a lot, or
Well,
they don't.
I mean, like Jabba the Hutt would have lost all like impact if he was just like this
Yeah,
little.
but he's like a big worm monster. You can't call Jabba the Hutt his name though.
Yeah.
It's hurt many a fat people over time. Like,
Oh, and that's kind of like another thing. Like I feel like if if you're having an overweight person and if you see that kind of stuff in your media, and especially when it's not like blunted and overdone, but if it's kind of like that, and like if that bothers you, I think instead of getting mad at that, you need to kind of look more at yourself. Like, you know what I mean? Because then you're like, not easily, but you could make it so yourself exclude all, health problems and, things like that.
well, when you see like the fat acceptance movement or a lot of like different woke things, a lot of it, I don't even want to say a lot of it, but a good portion has to do with people not willing to take that self-reflection and see like the reason they're lashing out and finding these things offensive is because maybe their own lives aren't so great, or maybe there's problems that they see in themselves in these things, like Stephen King writing about fat people. If somebody feels bad about that because they're fat, and it's just like they don't like that somebody that looks like them in a book has to be a bad character, I get that. But if they're just feeling bad, like Stephen King writes a character that's a fat person, and they just feel bad because they see themselves as that character, then that's kind of like, like, and you could do that with like the drug addicts. He writes about a lot about drug addicts in his work too. Like if somebody is offended because they see a drug addict in a book, like Jamie from Revival is a good example because he's not a bad person.
Yeah.
But he was a drug addict in that book, and I could see somebody reading that book and feeling bad because like, oh, why he depicts this character like this at this certain time, and they would feel bad because that's how they're kind of seeing themselves in that character. They're like, oh, he's a fuck up, I'm kind of a fuck up. But if you don't want to admit that, then you can easily just be like, oh, why you got just because somebody does heroin that means they're a bad person? Like that's the attitude you might get. So there is some level of self-reflection I think people need to take and just kind of like we were talking earlier, kind of control your own life to a degree. Like you do have to get like whether people want to admit it or not, being obese is not healthy, and dying at 45 is not cool. Not everybody's going to die at 45 just because they're obese, but statistically, your rates do go up for health-related issues such as heart attacks and high blood pressure and all that stuff.
The one thing that I didn't like about the article is she took a section and talked about like how after he got into his car accident and broke his hip and then leg and all that stuff, that like
the doctors took good care of him because of him being like a skinny white male or something. But then if she was in the same situation, they wouldn't because she was fat. Like they would look at her.
Is that what it was?
It's kind of what I took away from that. Is like if she was in the hospital, they wouldn't treat her the same.
Okay, because I was almost reading like that. It's like after that, like that he should have had time to be retrospective and like not like. So maybe that was I kind of skimmed through that. Yeah, I think I did kind of like skim through that part. But the other point she was making was that, which I guess you could agree to an example or. To a degree as well, you can agree with that. It's because the thing was about like learning. Okay, like she even points out, the 70s and 80s. Okay, you really shouldn't judge authors based on old work like that. But he's still writing about this. So like in Billy Summers and some of his newer work, he's still talking about fat characters in a negative light. I skipped that paragraph because I haven't read it yet.
Oh, you didn't want
to. So I didn't, just in case if it gave anything away, I kind of skipped that paragraph.
But she talked about it in his newer work. He still has those same views on fat people,
like,
apparently.
60 books, she brought up like 4 or 5 stories.
Well, when I was reading the comment thread on Twitter.
Did they bring up more?
No. I forget who it was. I don't remember. Someone had a counterpoint for every example she used. They're like, okay, so you talked about Ben from It being fat. Well, what about this character who was skinny? Like he would bring up from his other, because he has enough work.
Yeah.
That there's always a counterpoint. So it's almost like a biased article because, if you're going to talk about like him body shaming fat people, well, why don't you do it to the other stuff he has? Like you kind of have to have an even balance. And that's where the whole, it could be a hit piece kind of deal does come into play. It's like, you're only looking at it from the one side. You're not using, the examples of him talking about other kinds of body types and other things. I'm sure if you had somebody who was really skinny, maybe they would be able to come up with their own article why Stephen King hates skinny people. Like I haven't read enough of his work. I wouldn't know if that's a common theme. Is there's always a skinny bad guy? Probably not, but just saying there could be. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't think
People in Maine get mad that Stephen King keeps on placing this. Why does all these bad stuff have to happen in Maine?
Maine's a great state. I don't like that he has to. No, they love Stephen King up there. That makes them put him on the map, literally. You think if he dies, they're gonna? If he dies, because he's gonna be immortal. When he dies, they're gonna like rename a city like King or something.
Oh, they have to
or
do
at least
something.
a Castle Rock come out with a real castle.
Yeah, they gotta do something.
My first, like I said, my first thing was to get kind of defensive when I read the title of this article and stuff.
Well,
but
when you first sent it to me a couple of days
did
ago,
you also get the rage a little bit?
Well, I got to see what it was about, and I got like the first paragraph, and I was just like, nope, because I don't care.
That's exactly what I did.
I was like, I don't even want to, like, I'm neutral. I don't really, regardless either way. And then whenever you texted me earlier today, it was just like, hey, read that article before we record. I was just like, God damn it.
I felt it was important to talk about. I completely understand where she's coming from, and I agree with a lot of her points. And I thought the article was well written, and I don't have a problem, because I sent it to Ash, and he seemed like he just got furious immediately as well. But I don't know on, post-reflection how he feels, because he's more indifferent on Stephen King than you are, because like, he's not a huge fanboy, but he does read his work. This kind of goes to previous discussions we had where you retroactively cancel certain authors because of their views and their personal views. Obviously, Stephen King's still a living, working author, so he can't give him as much slack as, say, a H.P. Lovecraft. But I don't think canceling, which, I mean, we call it canceling, but Stephen King's not getting canceled.
No.
Unless he shoots a baby in the street. Even so, even if he did shoot a baby, he's never going to get canceled because he's Stephen King. He might not ever get to work again. He might go to jail. He might die. It doesn't matter. People are still, in some capacity, going to read his work unless the government specifically bans and finds every copy of every book he ever had and burned it and wipes them out of existence. It's the only way he's actually going to get canceled. Most people don't actually get canceled. It's very rare. So Stephen King will be fine. And this article, like I said, it didn't even seem to reach his fucking peripheral. I don't think he even... Almost everyone was just defending him in all the comments and all the other threads that were going on about it. It just didn't seem like it had much of an impact like I think this lady wanted it to. But I will say, I thought, I agree with what she was saying to a degree. Stephen King, certainly, maybe if he does read that article, he might reflect and be like, maybe I am a little too harsh on fat people. Maybe I should stop writing about obese people in such a negative way.
Well, I know she mentioned it in one of the paragraphs, but she doesn't really get into it. But, like, I don't know how you leave, like, thinner out.
She talked about thinner.
But, like, not, she just, like, mentioned it.
About how being fat was bad.
But how also becoming skinny is a curse.
Yeah, she didn't bring that. Like I said, she didn't bring up the counterpoints on any of this stuff. She only brought up the fat parts of it. She didn't bring up the other side of the coin, which in thinner, obviously being super thin is not good either. He's dying.
And, like, what happens to him doesn't happen because he's fat.
It has nothing to do with it. That's just like...
He's getting a fucking blowjob while he's driving.
Would thinner been an interesting story if the guy was just a normal athletic guy and then he started wasting away? It would not be as interesting in my opinion.
It would be, she would have an argument if it was fatter.
If he was fatter? Or he got fatter?
Yeah, like if it was like a,
thin
like,
guy that gets fatter.
Fat. Yeah, until he explodes or something.
Yeah, it could be a... overall fucking allegory for gluttony and, the 7 deadly sins and things like that. But I think that overall, I personally, again, we're 2 straight white males, so we're literally his exact demographic. So our opinions probably steer closer to what his beliefs are, so we're not going to get so offended by that. We also are older millennials, I guess. I don't know what's considered an old millennial, but we're the 30s millennials, so we grew up with very offensive humor and stuff, so we don't get offended by that stuff, like South Park and all that stuff. It's the younger generation.
Kids.
Yeah, so we don't seem to have the same views as, say, the Zoomer generation, who may get too offended by things that we would consider stupid, but maybe they're not stupid. I don't know the age of the lady who wrote that article. I'm sure she's a little bit older, maybe our age, maybe a little young, but around that. She's an adult, probably a millennial. So I get where she's coming from, but I don't think too many people are going to necessarily agree with her, because I don't think the people who are reading Stephen King currently and buying his books are of that kind of thinking. Like, if you're reading Stephen King books, you can't really be easily offended, or you're not going to read his books. About as simple as that. With any author, and again, you can just choose not to read. Like, that's a simple solution. But with any author, because someone in the comments, like, I knew they were full of shit, because they were talking about, like, oh, his racist problems of being racist in books and, like, all this and using the N-word whenever he can and all this shit. And somebody commented, was like, well, how many Stephen King books have you actually read? I read at least 50 of them. But this person very specifically and very detailed talked about how they hated his work and stuff. It's like, so you read 50 books of a guy you don't like. Why? You're full of shit. There's no way. Do you think I'm going to read the whole Twilight series? Just so I could be like, fuck that stupid Twilight. I hate it, and here's why. Like, who does it? That's like sociopath behavior.
I got notes.
I read his whole bibliography, didn't like a single thing he wrote, and here's why. You're fucking nuts. I'm obviously not going to listen to you.
That's the same guy that goes to like a restaurant. Like, for some reason, I vividly remember this story from whenever I was little. My mom was a waitress, that she did get this old guy. He got like the chili and like fucking ate the bowl clean dry. I'm just like, this was bad chili. I want my money back. You ate all of it.
Fuck you, guy. That's like me, who is very allergic to milk. My face and throat will swell up and my lungs will stop working if I have too much milk. So that's like me going to a milkshake bar or something, or a frozen yogurt shop, and being like, I'm going to try all of this, and then I'm going to tell you what I think of it. You know what I think of it? I'm dead. That's what I think of it. That's what I thought of it. I died, so it wasn't very good. But on the off chance I don't die, and I just go into a brief coma, and I come back and they revive me, I'm not going to go back again, but maybe next time will be better. And then after 50 times of almost dying, I would hope I built up some kind of tolerance by then, I go, you know what? Your frozen yogurt sucks. Your milkshakes are terrible.
They do not bring the boys to the yacht at all.
Not even a bit. They just keep almost killing me. Like, no, I just wouldn't drink the milkshake. So in summation, I don't see Stephen King's work as too problematic. Obviously, I don't judge his work from the 70s and 80s the same as I would judge his modern work. If I seen him throwing around the N-word a lot in modern stories, I'd be like, dude, that's kind of, why are you doing that still? Like that, that's I guess the problem with like the fat stuff is people are like, okay, it's 2022 now. Why are you still shitting on fat people so much? I get it, Stephen King. Stop shitting on fat people. But at the same time, I haven't read enough of his work to say he's actually shitting on fat people that much. I'm not, when I read his work or anybody's work, I generally don't go into, oh yeah, this is what this guy believes 100%. Like, I don't read stuff like that.
Yeah.
Unless it's specifically like,
unless if you know, like, the author.
Yeah, if it's like an Ayn Rand situation where I'm like, oh yeah, that's like actually what she believes, so she just put it in fiction form, like, then I can understand. Like if J.K. Rowling is writing, didn't she have like some stories about like a transgender person, like a serial killer or something awful? And I'm just like, yeah, that's kind of, her views on trans people are pretty fucked up, and I can see why people get mad that she's writing about this as well. But if Stephen King wrote that same story and he's like a big activist for trans rights, I would be like, yeah, he does not believe that. He just happens to have a trans character who's a serial killer. That's, not the same. Might be in bad taste. Somebody said in the comments that Stephen King is like the older, woke kind of person who doesn't actually get it, but really wants to. I can see that. He's like 80.
Yeah. He wants it, but he might not 100% get it.
Yeah, like, you gotta give him at least a little leeway there and be like, okay, he's trying. Like, it's not like, fucking, like, everybody gives Cormac McCarthy a fucking pass on being, saying racist shit in his work and doing everything. Nobody cares because they know he's a fucking insufferable douche. So they're just like, you know what, just let that guy go. But Stephen King is like, well, he's trying to be good, but so we're gonna point out every time he fucks up. That's what I hate, because usually they don't try to cancel people that they know are just not going to give a shit. They want to cancel the people they know are actually going to be hurt by it. Not maybe monetarily, like they're going to be hurt by you just saying that there's something. Like when you call somebody who's very not racist, they'll probably get more offended than somebody who's just racist.
Yeah.
They're like, no, yeah, I'm racist. Fuck you. But if, you call somebody who fights for, like Black Lives Matter and all this stuff, and then you're like, yeah, you're racist, they might actually get offended. Like, hey, fuck you, guy. I've been doing all this stuff, and now you're saying I'm racist. And then that's when you create fucking evil supervillains who actually become racist. Sorry, I went on a little rant there. Anything you want to add to this?
Not particularly, no.
You didn't seem too jazzed about getting into this, but I thought it was a good topic. I want to talk about fat rights and stuff. That's like another thing. I don't really, because I am also the older woke guy who might not get it all the time. I don't know if you're allowed to say fat anymore unless you're fat.
Can we just...
Because of the fat acceptance.
Can we just stop?
But I mean, I've been fat in my life, so does that give me the right to say it?
Now, what if another fat guy tells you can use the
fat word?
Yeah. What if you threw the PH on it?
That's a different topic altogether. Like you said, you were bigger when you were younger, so can you say fat? Or if once you go skin, you can't say fat.
Oh no!
Like they say, once you go black, you don't go back. Once you say fat, you can't.
Oh, again, like me, I'm that classic case of like the skinny fat.
Skinny fat.
Yeah, like what's that? Like what can I do? Like can I? Like,
You in both ballparks.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of here, a little bit of there.
You're like in the interracial relationship with food.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of country. I'm a little bit of rock and roll.
A little gelatinous, a little opposite of gelatinous.
Bony.
I feel like we're gonna start making fun of fat people if we keep talking about it.
Yes, so we should wrap up.
We thank you for listening. This has been the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast. If you want to check out our fiction, where I personally have never written a negative thing about a fat person that I can remember. I don't think you have either, really. I don't think so. No. I will say both of our fiction, we generally don't go into people's appearances too much. For me, that's by choice. I kind of, unless it's a specific character trait, I don't actually want my reader to fully know what the protagonist, for example, looks like. I would want it to kind of, they could come up with it. I think that's a better way to do it. For most stories, like I have some stories where I go into more detail, like my Asher Kang stories. That's a very specific character look, so I want him to look a certain way, and I want people to know what he looks like. But in other stories, I like to keep it more vague. So you probably never gonna read about any of my work and see like me making a fat person some lazy, dastardly fucking jerk. But I'm not Stephen King, so I'm not writing that much work, I guess. Anyway, you can check out our work at drunkenpenwriting.com. Go on Twitter and follow us at drunkenpenwriting, and then go on Instagram and Facebook at drunkenpenwriting. And we also have exciting news coming up that I haven't told Spencer, so stick around for that. Poopy the poopy the poop shits. 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 You poo poo every idea I have. You poo poo every idea I have.
They do not bring the boys to the yacht at all.
Not even a bit. They just keep almost killing me.